This is ESPN Esports. I'm Arda Ocal. Happy to be joined by ESAM, who will be part of Smash Ultimate Summit 2. He got voted in. He will be there. It's going to be bonkers. The event's going to be fantastic, as Summit always is. Let's start here, ESAM. How excited are you to have been voted in and to be involved with it a second time?
I mean, it's going to be super cool. Like the first summit I went to for Melee a couple of years ago was one of the best experiences I had ever had at that time, like in my esports career. And Ultimate and esports kind of revving up in general. I'm really interested in how this stacks up. I know I'm going to be able to get a lot of practice. The tournament's going to be insane. I'm going to be able to bond with the other top players because it's basically just us and then all the people that were like invited in the casters and things like that, and like the VIPs. But it's like still a pretty small kind of close knit type of thing. So I'm excited for that. As I mentioned, a bunch of good practice and just have fun. Like it's gonna be so much fun.
So let me unpack 2016 first before we talk about this one, because it was such a unique experience for you, right? Because a
Mhm.
lot of people weren't necessarily expecting you to have participated in that in the first place. And there you are, taking games off of Armada in his heyday there a couple years ago, the video that's online. So, like, what were you feeling going into that? Did you feel any of that people were sort of like, why is ESAM going? And then, leaving an impression? What were your thoughts there?
I definitely had to deal with a lot of the online vitriol and the hate that got thrown my way. It was a lot, and it is the most I have still to this day ever got was when I was campaigning for that because, a lot of people viewed me as the outsider. I'm the Smash 4 player that's trying to get into Melee Summit and using like my community as opposed to like the split quote unquote Melee community for all the players. A lot of people thought it was unfair. Obviously a lot of the top players knew I was good. They never said any of those type of things. Like when I got to Summit, they were like, dude, it's good to see you. Like, I really hope you can like do well, take this seriously, blah, blah, blah. Granted, that was the time that they didn't do pools for Summit, so it was just a 16-man bracket. So me being the lowest ranked player there, I had to play Armada round one. And although I did beat him in the crew battle when he went Fox, his Peach was another story. It handily beat me, and then I lost to Shroomed immediately afterwards, who again, an amazing player, top 10 player at the time. His Sheik, which is one of my least favorite matchups in Melee. So I was like, okay, I went 0-2, but like these two players are really good and actually super hard matches for me in general. But overall, like I feel like I got a lot of good practice. It was really fun. Again, the people there, whether it was the commentators, whether it was the other players, whether it was the people that were VIPs, everyone made me feel welcome and part of this group of people that were just the Melee Summit people. So thankfully, I did not get nearly as much hate campaigning this one, considering I am an ultimate player. But it is going to be incredibly fun. Again, so much good practice because again, like I live with MVD, but other than that, I don't really get a lot of high level practice because a lot of the times at tournaments I'm super busy, whether it's with interviews or with fan stuff or like resting between my basically like my brackets. I don't really get a chance to play a lot of the top players super frequently outside of tournaments, so it's really nice to be able to sit down and play with people like Leo, Tweak, Meister, Leffen, Armada, because those two are also in there, even though they're normally seen as the Melee players. They're also both incredible players, like super, super talented. I think every single player that is there has a chance of doing incredibly well. Maybe not winning, because I feel like, the lower fourth of the people have like a couple matchups that they're not going to win. But they definitely have a chance to do really well, get some upsets, get some, eyes on them, because of course that's one of the best things about Ultimate is the attention and the ability to brand build, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And to that point, take me through like when you went into the house in 2016 versus when you went out and the weeks after that, where would you say your career was?
That's a good question. I definitely think that the summit kind of helped me because one, it helped me gain the respect of a lot of the Melee players in terms of the like top players. They all really liked me. They were super excited for my drive in Melee. And granted, that was fairly short-lived because then I got knocked down so hard 4 months later by a player named Drug Fox that I was like, oh, it's not worth it for me to play this game because I can't get there. Like it made me feel so hopeless, and that's ended up why I quit Melee. But at Summit, a lot of people respected me. All those players, whenever I see them at tournaments, are like, dude, please play Melee again. So, there's no like animosity there. It's just a lot of respect, from the Smash 4 side to the Melee side and then vice versa. It was a lot of mutual respect, which was really nice. But It definitely allowed me to see something that could be more esports. Because again, 2016, this was before a lot, obviously way before Ultimate, before Civil War, I'm pretty sure, in terms of Smash 4, at least as far as I remember. So there wasn't as much like crazy big events of like storylines and all this that happened in Smash 4, other than like Zero's the best, right? Like, because that was obviously a
Hmm.
huge storyline. Even like the Renai Zero was kind of happening in that time, I'm pretty sure, around that. Or maybe like just prior, so Japan was starting to travel to the US more and vice versa. So there was that kind of rivalry and story, but it still wasn't the established stories that existed in Melee and still exist in Melee. Obviously, Melee, a very storyline driven game. The Mango, Armada, HBox, Mewtwo King. Mewtwo King does well at a single tournament. Everyone's like, Return to the King. And like it can be 2 years between them, right? Like no shots at Mewtwo King, of course, but that's just how it is, right? People love the stories of Melee and Ultimate now, of course, being young, so much exposure, so many tournaments that there's just so much information to keep track of. But finally, Ultimate Summit 2, I feel like is going to be, because Ultimate Summit 1, kind of early in the meta, people are still trying to figure out what's going on, although it did definitely put Leo in the forefront of everything, considering he won and a lot of the other top players were there. And that kind of definitely shifted towards the second half of the year that's existed with Leo being fairly dominant, getting second at worst at most of these events. But Ultimate Summit 2, now that it's kind of a little bit more of an established game, an established meta, this is really going to be the things to look out for in 2020. This is going to be, in my opinion, like the basically biggest storyline up until Genesis, which of course is going to reignite everything at the beginning of 2020. And that's going to, in my opinion, just kind of set the tone. And I'm really excited for that.
So what do you make, just to tie a bow on the Melee discussion going into Ultimate Summit 2, what do you make of competitors like Armada and Leffen, who are really associated with Melee first, being involved in the house and really looking to sharpen up their Ultimate game?
I mean, Armada, quit Melee before Ultimate came out, and he has been, when he's entered tournaments, only doing Ultimate. He streams a lot of Ultimate. He's really smart. He's like an incredibly smart player. I actually had the pleasure of playing him in bracket at Big House a couple of weeks ago. I beat him, and there was like clearly no way he knew anything about Pikachu that like I was throwing at him, and he still brought the games very close, and I was incredibly impressed at how fast he was able to adapt and just his general like solid gameplay. He was never shaken if I did something that was like crazy and killed him. Like I basically zero to death them the beginning of every single game, and I was like, okay, he's going to be shaken, and then played a super solid game and just didn't care that he was losing. He was like, no, I can still win this. It doesn't matter how much I'm losing. And that is the type of mentality that Armada has always had. Leffen, I have a little bit less experience playing him in Melee. I played him, I think, once in tournament ever. Me and him are very clashing when it comes to like the social media. So I'm not 100% sure how like of course, how serious he takes the game, because he always like likes to, say whatever he says on Twitter about all that. But he is, of course, an incredible competitor. Like Meister, who's been having crazy runs recently, third at Big House, got in with the last chance qualifier. Leffen beat him and sent him to losers at Super Smash Con, and then obviously had the crazy set with Salem. He is a really strong competitor, an incredible player, and he's not to be slept on at all. He does enjoy the game and like the game, at least enough to be playing it at this level. So, I'm really excited to see what they can do, what they can learn from having this concentration of top players, because again, they're smart. Leffen, a multi-game talent, is good at Dragon Ball Fighters. He was pretty good at Marvel vs. Capcom. Obviously, he was really good at Melee, had his heyday in Smash 4. He's incredible, and he can really be a super top Ultimate player if he puts the effort in. Of course, that's up to him, because obviously he is a Melee, arguably the best player in the world right now, because he's, I think, won everything he entered, or at least got like top 8 or top 5, beat Hungerbox multiple times. So he's been doing incredibly well in Melee. And Ultimate, of course, is, I don't want to say it's more competitive, because there's obviously a crazy amount of Melee players that are like super talented and super top level, but I feel like Leffen, of course, already in the super top echelon of Melee, and it's hard to stay in that, but it's less competition in general just because he's ahead of the pack, whereas the pack in Ultimate is in general so much higher, at least, in my opinion, because it's newer and there's less of a, you can't be as dominant, right? There's a reason that people revere Leo, is because it's like, wow, everyone's being competing for these 3 to 5 spots and he just keeps winning. Like, that's insane. That's not normal, right? So I feel like the pack overall is just so much higher in Ultimate, so it's going to be really
Sure.
interesting to see Leffen and Armada kind of deal with that. Now that they're not ahead of everyone, that everyone's trying to catch up, they're the ones trying to catch up to players like Leo and Tweak and Samsora and all the other major winners. Like, it's going to be crazy.